Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing. Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 315 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. So awesome to be here with you guys. I am just back from our annual sailing trip to the British Virgin Islands. Man, it was amazing. It was good to be back in the BVI. It was really the first time since COVID because they had crazy regulations up until this last year. Like you had to wear an ankle bracelet and all this. Anyway, it's crazy. But, it's always good to be back home, too. I mean, getting back into my routine, especially my morning routine. I love my morning routine. I love to get up early. 5 a.m. is my favorite time of day. It's dark and it's quiet, and I get to turn my lights on just the way I want them so that the backyard's lit up and my back deck lights are on, and it just all looks like a beautiful 5-star resort back there. It really does. And I appreciate every moment of early mornings. I look around and I'm just so grateful. So after these 2 weeks of being out of town, I just sit down to have my coffee in my favorite spot, overlooking my backyard. And all of a sudden, I notice there's this bright, shining light in my eye. Not just one, but two. And they're like these blue-white spotlights coming from the neighbor's house. Now, we have lots of trees back there, but they cannot possibly block out these lights. So now I'm like, what in the world? And I can feel myself getting irritated and having all these thoughts about these lights. So now I have to sit up a little because I can feel myself getting irritated, and I'm wondering, what am I going to do about these lights ruining my morning? But I noticed as I sat up a little straighter, I realized now I don't see them so much because my line of sight is different. And I also realized, hey, you're ruining your own morning because there may not be anything you can do about those lights. But if something as simple as sitting up a little straighter makes it a little better, why not do that? You see, the more I focused on those lights, the worse they got. Not literally, they weren't getting any brighter, but I was making it worse in my head. So I asked myself, how do I give myself peace right now? For starters, just sit up a bit so it's not in your eyes. And second, stop focusing on it so much. There's always going to be things like that in life. There will always be things we can focus on that upset us. And the more we focus on it, the more upset we get and the bigger that thing gets. I was literally walking through scenarios where I somehow sneak on their property and aim those lights down so they're not shining so straight out into our backyard. And I was also going through, is there an ordinance or something about lights that maybe the city could do something about it if we called them? That's neighborly, isn't it? But both of those ideas were really bad. They were not helping things. So once I sat up and it wasn't directly in my eye, I realized I was making it a lot worse because I just kept dragging on about it. I mean, it's there. There's nothing going to change that those lights are there. So how do I find peace right now? Well, I sit up straighter because it gets it out of my eyes, and I also change my focus. There's a lot of pretty things to look at out there. I mean, the lights are still there, but I'm not focusing on them anymore. So I'm not letting it bother me. It's part of my day-to-day. We actually had the same problem on the front of the house when we first moved in. It's been like 15 years ago. Our bedroom window, one of them faces the front, and our other neighbor on the front installed the brightest spotlight ever. And even with our woven shades, it would light up our room quite a bit. Now, I actually remember thinking about asking them to change the direction of their light too, but we fixed the problem on our end. So I simply designed a Roman shade with black outlining, and voila, problem fixed. Now, that was 15 years ago. I don't think I've thought about that light since then, but that light is still there too. We just took things into our own hands, and we fixed it on our end. Now it doesn't bother us at all. I mean, we live in a world with other people. And as long as that is the case, which I hope is forever, because it would be a lonely place if there weren't any other people. Have you ever seen that movie with Will Smith where he's the only human left alive in all of New York? I think it's New York. But he would have paid money to have a neighbor shining light into his eyes. And it may seem like I'm asking for all of us to just settle for less than what we want, but that is not what I'm saying at all. I couldn't do anything about my neighbor's lights at 5 in the morning, but I was wrecking my own morning by focusing on them. So by changing my focus, I was able to remember that, hey, I've had this problem before and we overcame it. I can do it again. I also realized that just changing how I was sitting made it where I really didn't see them that much. And that was super easy to do. What I am saying, though, is how do you find peace in a situation that is not to your liking, but isn't going to change? Not immediately, anyway. How do I put the power back into my own hands instead of blaming my neighbor for having poor taste in lighting? I mean, in a perfect world, I shouldn't have to deal with their lights. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But here I am, having to deal with those lights. Now, I could rail against those neighbors and be mad and go knock on their door asking them to change, and then I could rally the other neighbors because surely it's annoying to them too. And now everyone's upset and focusing on those lights, and it would be justified. Or, in this moment, I can sit up a little straighter so I don't see them, and I could focus my attention elsewhere. And if the lights really bother me, I can focus on creating a long-term solution, like we did for our bedroom with the blackout shade. So how do you get control of yourself and your life so that you stop being so bothered by other people and other things? Now, that neighbor has no idea that light's bothering me. I bet if they did, they would rectify it. Maybe, or maybe not. And that's why it's so important for us always to know we can fix the problem on our end, whatever it is. There's always going to be things that don't seem fair. There isn't a human alive that hasn't had to deal with their version of a neighbor's light shining directly into their eyes. Maybe it's your family member that doesn't quite act the way you want. Or maybe it's that friend and the awful way they parent. Or maybe it's your coworker and how they seem to be out to get you. And any of those things could be true, but how do you get yourself to the point to where you're unbothered? You do that by fixing the problem on your end, even if that doesn't seem fair. What's the downside? There's not one, because you're able to find peace in any situation when you do that. And when you're able to find peace in any situation, you'll start seeing solutions will flow rather than simply allowing the problem to grow. My challenge to you this week is in any challenging situation you have this week. Pick one, right? But in any one of those challenging situations, stop and ask yourself, how do I find peace right now without anything having to change? How do I put the power of my emotions back in my own hands? You may not think that's possible, but I assure you it is. Just ask yourself, how do I fix this problem on my end? I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.